Hey guys, it's Harley. Today we're going to be talking about Aeschynanthus plants, more commonly known as lipstick plant. Ta-da! They are so beautiful and amazing plants to keep. I'm telling you, they really are. You guys probably already know that they're some of my favorites, particularly this beauty right here, but we'll get into the varieties and all of that a little bit later. As always, any products I mention in the video will be linked down below if you'd like to try them out for yourself. And then also, I will go ahead and list a whole bunch of different lipstick plant varieties so you can look them up and do some research for yourself if you're interested in picking up a lipstick plant. And as always, please leave any additional lipstick plant care tips in the comment section down below. I always forget some stuff, so yes, it's very nice to have you knowledgeable people around to pick up the slack for me. Let's just get into it. I guess first things first, let's talk about lighting, because I do think that that's the most important aspect in regards to care of lipstick plants, particularly if you want your plants to flower. The lighting is the most important crucial step to follow. So basically these plants do like medium to bright light exposure, and that's kind of a vague way to categorize lighting, but they do happy pretty much wherever they're getting 5 to 6-ish hours of light a day, and they can even handle minimal amounts of direct sunlight, although I wouldn't give them too much direct light. Their leaves can burn if they're getting too much of that direct light exposure, but a little bit's fine. All of mine actually are facing southern windows, and I have mine pulled back between 2 to 4 feet from the windows, and they've all done really well. I do also really quickly want to mention that if your lipstick plant isn't blooming, chances are it's not getting enough sun exposure. So if you haven't noticed blooms in a few months, then I would go ahead and move it into brighter sun exposure if you're wanting it to bloom for you. It basically throws out buds all the time if it's getting enough light. Kind of on the same lines with lighting is temperature, and they do prefer temperatures from 70 to 80 degrees. That's their ideal. So be wary of putting them too close to the window. Like I said, where they get direct light exposure, it can kind of magnify onto them and cause burning. They are a lot more temperamental about colder temperatures, particularly like 40, 50 degree temps. Then they will get some yellowing on their leaves. I'll insert some close-ups of where that happened to me because I had it too close to a cold window at one point. The plant's fine. It has bounced back since then, but it did get some discoloration on some of the leaves. So be wary about keeping it too close to anything super cold. This is a plant I really appreciate for its humidity desires. I'm not even gonna call them needs, because although they do prefer pretty high humidity, they do really well in super dry climates as well. I don't have any humidifiers in the room I keep these, and they've done really well, and my house is like a freaking desert dry, so they will still bloom and be happy even if the humidity isn't high, so that's just not even something you really have to consider too much. Next up is the water requirements for these plants. Watering is like the next important step, if you ask me, as far as these plants go, and that's because they are susceptible to root rot. So basically when you're watering them, you just want to make sure probably about half of the soil is fairly dry before watering it again. And these are plants that I prefer to bottom water. I just feel like they're able to soak up the correct amount of water that they need this way, and it takes out a lot of the guesswork. So I mean, I am a bottom watering advocate though. If you don't bottom water, make sure you're checking the soil really well before you're watering. And then a really cool thing about this plant, particularly not so much this black pagoda variety, but more the Cassiopeia, I think this one's called, variety. Maybe it's called Radicans with like the thicker leaves. They do get wrinkled when they're thirsty. So once about half of each vine is fairly well wrinkled, then I'll go ahead and plop it into a bowl of water and let it absorb the water until the plant perks up and there's no more wrinkles. Yeah, that's worked really well for me. I haven't had any root rot issues, which has been lovely. I would also say that kind of the temperature you're watering your plant, it's not crucial, vital to your plant's health, but they are pretty picky about temperatures like we talked about before. Be sure you're not watering it with too cold or too hot of water, because that can send the plant into shock, as with most plants actually, now that I think about it. So I just like to let the water sit out for a few hours to kind of acclimate to room temperature, just so I'm not shocking my plant. And I do fertilize these plants every single time I water in the summer months, and then probably once a month maybe, if that, in the colder, like not growing season. So currently I'm using a fish fertilizer and my plants have really loved it. I will say right away, this has a gross smell, but I do just water my plants outside if I'm using this type of fertilizer. By the time they've soaked up the water and then I take them out of the bowl and let them drain all their excess water, there is no like residual smell on the plant. So yeah, I haven't had an issue with the smell that way, but when you're pouring it in the water and while it's sitting in that water, I will tell you, it is stinky. If you have like aversions to smells and things like that, then I definitely wouldn't recommend this kind. I would recommend a Spoma brand, which I will have both of these linked down below if you're interested in picking them up for yourself. Plants really do love the fish fertilizer, so I'm going to continue dealing with the smell and watering them with it. Taking one for the team, you're welcome. You're so welcome. So I guess we'll start with my smallest lipstick plant, and it is variegated lipstick plant. Surprise, surprise, it is variegated. There are two different types of variegated lipstick plant. The way you tell is if the plant is more lime green, then it's the mini variegated lipstick plant. If it has the bigger, thicker leaves like this one and darker leaves as well, then it is the Aeschynanthus. Why can't I say it all of a sudden? Then it's Aeschynanthus Radicans Variegata, which that's the case with this one. You can find these with more yellow variegation as well as ones with more white variegation lately, which is really cool. This one is a little bit more difficult than my other two varieties I have in my care, but it's not anything unmanageable by any means. Next up is my Black Pagoda lipstick plant, which she is starting to get pretty big. Very proud of you. You go, girlfriend, you go. This plant is really beautiful. I love the shape of the leaves. It's really unique from anything. I say that about every plant, but it's just so true. Every plant is unique from anything, you know? This one in particular, because the patterns on the leaves are insane. I think this is such an underrated plant. It's so underrated. I mean, would you look at that? And then especially on the undersides, I'll insert close-ups. The markings on the plant are crazy. What I really like about this plant is in its youth, the stems are kind of lime green and like, we'll just say bendy. But then as it ages, the stems become more wood-like and more rigid, which is really cool. It gives it a unique plant and you can kind of see like how your plant is aging a little bit that way. And I really like the way that the like more wood-like stems stand out from the rest of the plant. This one is so beautiful. It does also bloom, but the blooms are very minimal compared to the way the rest of this plant looks. They just kind of blend in. They're like these little light green things. I don't think it's personally anything to write home about, but if your plant's blooming, that means it's probably pretty happy. So I guess that's thank you from the plant, which is nice, but definitely recommend this plant if you're able to get your hands on one. And last up is one you've seen so many times on my channel because we're best friends. This one hangs above my bed, so I wake up to it every morning, and yeah, I guess you could say we're pretty close. Anyway, this one is the Aeschynanthus Cassiopeia. There are a lot of varieties that look a lot like this plant, but they are different varieties, and the main way to tell what variety it is by the blooms. So this one, like I said, is the Cassiopeia variety, and the way I know that is because the blooms, well, it starts with these little like dark red, purpley, almost black bud things, and then the actual flower grows in bright red from within that. So if your plant is doing that, you have the Cassiopeia variety. There are also ones that have completely red flowers, like more orangey flowers, yellow flowers, a whole lot of different varieties. So if you're not sure what you have, wait for it to bloom and it'll tell you what it is. That is everything I have to say about the lipstick plant for now. I mean, I could gush about it for a long time, and in fact I do on Instagram all the time. I'm talking about this baby over here. If you think I left any information out, then please leave it in the comments down below so other people can read through them and have your additional input and experience and information. If you have any lipstick plants, I'd love to know which variety you have and how it has done for you in your care. Okay, yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.